You read the title, so I'm going to give a disclaimer first, and I'm also going to be looking this way at my laptop because there's a lot to cover and there's a lot to say. So here's the disclaimer. So the members of the religion are not inherently racist, but I'm going to explain how the environment, rules, and representation lead to a lot of anti-Black activity. And if you ask like witnesses, I will say that they'll probably answer and tell you that they are an accepting group of people. But the best way I can explain or relate the Jehovah's Witness like level of anti-Blackness, sorry my eye, is that it reflects the same amount of anti-Blackness that exists inherently within American culture. It's just reflected in the religion. So let's dive into this. Now, one thing, if you talk to Black Jehovah's Witnesses, if when they compare themselves to other religions, like they'll say, "Oh, we're better than Mormons because back in the day, Mormons didn't allow Black people into their priesthood," or something like this. And then if you talk to a Mormon will say, "No, those are old teachings, or it's a wrong translation," or they'll basically try to gaslight you into thinking that there was a valid reason behind it. So now, let me preface the statement I'm about to make. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that everything in written form from their magazines, Watchtower, Awake, Golden Ages, even like their video publications, everything comes from God. So God speaks directly to their group of overseers called like the governing body, like 8 to 10 members or something like this, aldermen. And these people get the inspiration or the light from God, and then they deliver the message to everyone else across the world. And so the stuff I'm about to tell you and show you, if you show a witness will try to gaslight you and say, it was a different time back then because they refused to believe that their teachings come from humans. So here are the receipts. This is like from a Watchtower in 1902, and the title of this section is called The Negro, Not a Beast. And so this is a quote. It says, "We are not to forget either that Africa is inhabited by various tribes and nations of Negroes." The wording Negro is killing me right now. "Some more and some less degraded than the average. Those brought to America as slaves were of various tribes, from among whom we doubt not the Lord is making choice of some of the prospective royal priesthood. While it is true that the white race exhibits some qualities of superiority over any other race, we are to remember that there are wide differences in the same Caucasian, yada, yada, yada." So I'm gonna have to pause for a second. So now imagine this. You have an organization, this is what year is this? 1902. You have an organization that is mostly white, and they're already stating that white people are superior to every other race. And this is just the beginning of how things unfold with the religion. This is called white supremacy. And because of this, in a Watchtower, according to JW Doctrine, there's only a few possibilities how this could have been allowed to be printed. These are the possibilities, according to, again, Jehovah's Witness Doctrine. So either one, Jehovah is a white supremacist. Two, the governing body are white supremacists, and they write down things from their own direction and not God's direction. Or option three, the governing body are white supremacists, and God is not okay with this, even though he is partial. But back then, apparently, this wasn't an issue for God. God was not concerned about how Black people felt. These are the only possibilities that would allow a Jehovah's Witness to understand why this is in their written material. Because if you think about this, is literally offensive to everyone who is not white. And if you're a JW and not Black, then you should be heavily offended as well, because this is, I don't know, it's just not right. This mindset. I hate this mindset of this anti-Blackness. There's a lot more, but let me share one more with you. This is a question from readers. I'm gonna try this in the leak as well. I'm gonna put this, at least the screenshot up here. So the question is there anything in the Bible that reveals the origin of the Negro? All right, so let me just pause. Sorry for pausing again, but this question is so white-centric. Like, they just think the world evolves around them, and like it starts with them as if they were the original humans. Anyway, so the answer. It is generally believed that the curse which Noah pronounced upon Canaan was the origin of the Black race. Certain it is that when Noah said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren," he pictured the future of the colored race. They have been and are a race of servants, like a race of servants. But now, in the dawn of the 20th century, we are all coming to see this matter of service in its true light and to find that the only real joy in life is in serving others, not bossing them. There is no servant in the world as good as a colored servant. This word colored is killing me. And the joy that he gets from rendering faithful service is one of the purest joys there is in the world. This is ignorant. This is ignorant. Do you know what black people went through slavery? I'm gonna tell you: beatings, death, trauma, torn apart families, being treated terribly, being sold, being not even being a human, to be honest, being at the bottom of a hierarchy, not having access to medical care, being experimented on, like being experimented on for medical purposes because tested on black people first before we tried on white people, and the list just goes on and on and on. But a lot of witnesses, the white ones back then, they just lived in such white delusion that they really cannot put themselves in the reality of another person. Because how can you dare say that Negroes are the Negroes are the best servants and there's no better servant and they are happily doing it? It's because they are so detached. Anyway, next subject. That was subject number one. The next subject, or next reason why there's a lot of anti-blackness within the Jehovah's Witness community is because they have this word called worldly, and that stands for like a secular, anything not in the Jehovah's Witness sphere is viewed as worldly. And so now think about this. Black culture is popular. Rap is popular. Our dancing is popular. Our streetwear is popular. Our styles and colors, expressions, a lot of things are just black centric, are just become popular. It is what it is. And so automatically everything that is popular is called worldly. So you can see how they're indirectly saying black culture is worldly. And this is why it's damaging, because it makes people feel that the stuff they grew up with is inherently bad. And of course, not all black people dress the same. I don't believe in stereotypes, obviously. But if you were a black Jehovah's Witness and you wanted to dress, a little more black, it would not be allowed. Which brings me to my next point, which is hairstyles. Women are not allowed to wear dreadlocks because it's associated with Rastafarianism. And because for them, they don't want people to associate them with that belief system, when in reality, that's so freaking stupid, because anywhere you go, if you see someone with dreads, you're not going to say, that's probably a Rastafarian. Like, it's so detached from reality. Anyway, if you Google the origins of dreadlocks, this is what you'll see. It says, ancient Egypt is the true birthplace of dreadlocks. Some ancient Egyptian mummies were found to have dreadlock wigs from 1400 BCE. These mummies are solid evidence that dreadlocks originated in ancient Egypt based on the timeline of other historical events. So even if there are Rastafarians who wear dreadlocks, it is not specifically just a Rastafarian thing that you can find in Jamaica. Black people wear dreadlocks. People in Africa wear dreadlocks. So they love to strip black people of their culture because, again, anything closer to whiteness is viewed as more holy, or any styles that are too black are viewed as something, political or religious. And I've heard witnesses say this, that perhaps, having certain the black power afros, like that can be too supportive of a political ideology. So let me show you this picture. You see these guys right here? You see this guy in the middle? Let me move to the side. You see this guy in the middle? Let's say his hair is like an inch or maybe 2 inches. Growing up in the 90s or early 2000s, black men were only allowed to have bald, shaved heads, or really, really short hair, like shorter than what you see on me right now, because our hair sits up a little bit higher and it was not viewed the same. So in general, I guess in Christianity, men cannot have long hair, but they don't base it on length. And Jehovah's Witnesses, they base it on texture. And this is called Texturism, and it sits deep within the JW community. I mean, it's in all communities, but in God's organization, Texturism should not exist. Here's an example. You see this beautiful black YouTuber right here. I'm putting her in the bio as well because she's great. You see her hair? This type of hairstyle is not allowed for a witness. You will never see one with hair like this because freeform dreadlocks are viewed as kind of unkempt. Even though there is nothing wrong with her hair, it is beautiful, but there's just so much anti-blackness within the organization that it leads a lot of women to only wear certain approved hairstyles. And the more ethnic your hairstyle is, the more worldly it looks to them. And it's just crazy to me, like other black people in the JW community will police each other over each other's hair because even themselves, they are so removed from their blackness that they deem blacker styles as more worldly. Like, imagine being black and then seeing other people who look like you and then judging them based on their appearance and associating their cultural identity with how devout they are to God. It's ridiculous. What else did I write on here? Like, it's so damaging to people who grew up with this, and it shapes their worldviews, and they don't even realize it. And to be honest, even myself, I didn't even realize a lot of this stuff until I stopped attending their services, because it's like, when you're a fish in water, you don't even realize you're wet. And so then they try to reason with you, aka gaslight you. And this is what a Jehovah's Witness will say. They'll say to you, it depends on the area you're in, because you don't want to be distracting to a person at the door with extra colorful hair or things they aren't used to seeing, aka your cultural look may be distracting to others, aka white comfort is more important than your black culture. And the craziest part is that we used to be in a mostly black congregation growing up, and we used to preach mostly to black people in black neighborhoods, and we had to follow those same rules, which tells you it's not about the people you're talking to in the door-to-door work, it's about keeping up with a white-centric view that has already been established. This is what it is about. Because when you look at the word like long, it's subjective. How do we define long hair? What hair is, like, how long is too long for black men's hair? Look at the example of the literature. Like, look at their pictures and you'll see how long is appropriate for a Jehovah's Witness. And it's clear there's a double standard for the length of a black man's hair in comparison to a white man's hair when you measure the exact same length. Like, back in the day, if I would have had my hair, like, let's say a white brother's hair was like this long, that's okay. He can comb it over to the side, move it like this. But my hair, if it was that long, it would just like stand up straight, depending on if I pick it out or not. And that was inappropriate. Same length hair, white man, it's okay. My black behind, not okay. Side note, black men can have a bit longer hair now. I'm gonna post a picture right here again to show you. Like, this type of style is okay, but growing up, if you have this type of style growing up, like in the 90s and whatnot, people were like, you look too worldly, which is ridiculous. So anyway, my next point, rap music at Bethel. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have a place, a headquarters, or also they have headquarters, I'll just call it like that, a place called Bethel. And so you have to apply to go here. And on their application, they used to have a question, and I can't find it, but I really want to find it. The question was, have you listened to rap music or heavy metal within the past year? And this application was, for years, it said this. Eventually they changed it. So here's like the updated version of the question. Now the question is, do you listen to music that features sexual immorality, violence, spiritism, profanity, or other subject matters like inappropriate for a Christian? And I remember as a kid, like, the original question bothered me a lot because I liked rap music, and I had many discussions with my mother about this, even one a couple of days ago. And there were just several problems with the original application with this question, because number one, it inherently puts all rap music into one category of being bad. Again, it takes this, cultural thing that we have, whole genre, demonizes it. Now, if rap music is, predominantly made by black people, especially back then when they were making these applications, because I guess they probably changed it in the 2010s or something like this, then you automatically exclude just about all of your black members, because I'm sure they have all listened to rap music within a year. The same way if you say, if you listen to reggaeton within the last year, you're going to exclude a lot of Puerto Ricans. It just happens like this. And this is systematically removing a lot of black people. And America has a great way of doing this stuff. And again, you can see this reflected in the Jehovah's Witness leadership. Number three, it upholds the idea of ideas of white JWs that anything black is automatically worldly or negative, because it affects us and how we view ourselves, but it also affects the members that we're with and how they see it. Because can you imagine that? Remember that Watchtower I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, talking about a white race being superior? At that time, that confirmed a lot of beliefs that white people already had. This type of teaching is harmful, and I would say that it's toxic as well. Which brings me to my next point. Let's keep going this. Let's talk about the illustrations that they use in the magazines and the imagery for Bible times. So for any ancient scene, this picture right here, I'm gonna post on the Ethiopian eunuch. This is the darkest person you'll find in JW magazines for anything in the Bible, because darker people, like anybody darker than Beyonce, apparently did not exist back then. And as a kid, this made me so uncomfortable. And I asked this question at a Bethel tour at Patterson once. And I was like, hey, how come in our images no one is darker than Beyonce? And I don't remember the answer I got, but I remember that it didn't make sense, because even when they have opportunities to add darker skinned people, They don't take these opportunities. And I feel like that's highly intentional. Another picture, boom, again, Adam and Eve. And think about it. If these were the first humans, how and why are they both white? Because we know the first humans were brown. But the reason I can tell you is because Jehovah's Witnesses, white Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, a lot of white Christians in general, they cannot imagine seeing anything great in an image that does not look like them. Their egos would be totally crushed, and they would feel so uncomfortable seeing a black Jesus, black Adam and Eve, and black angels, because they cannot fathom living in a world where they are not the center of it. And you know what? That's to be expected because they're humans and they're not inspired by God. Boom, next picture. All of these angels are white. And if you say this to a Jehovah's Witness, like kind of point this out to them, they're going to say to you, oh, these are spirit creatures. They don't have a race. Well, if that's the case, then I would argue, why aren't any of them darker than like a Sicilian? Why don't any of them have curly hair or Afrocentric features? Because if these are people who lived on earth and then they go to heaven, why are they not being represented? Does everyone just become white all of a sudden? Because like if I'm black, I'm going to heaven. I want to see somebody who looks like me. I've never seen any black angels in any JW literature. Now, if you show a picture of a black angel to a JW, just like, randomly say, hey, look at this, they would automatically know that this image was not produced by their religion. And it's so problematic, and they won't even acknowledge it, but they've never seen a black angel in their religion. And at this point, it's like the white comfort in the organization is always upheld. And it's just like, the example is through their imagery. Like you can see it clear as day. Here's, boom, another one, another image right here. And if you think about it, even when they show Jehovah, they don't show his face because no one knows what he looks like. But sometimes they'll show his hand or his outer appearance. And his hands are always white. Like this is just always, you can't see his facial features, but you know he's white. That's crazy. Why are you painting God white? Based off what? It's God. Okay, and so also I want to point out, I forgot to mention that I know race is a social construct, but just for the sake of conversation, I'm using words like white or black. Again, just for the sake of conversation. Other thing I want to say is that the one thing that they love doing in their movies or images, and you'll notice this as well, is they love racial ambiguous people because it makes them feel international when you can't tell a person's origins. You'll notice that a lot, especially in a lot of like the animated drawings of like modern day people or people in their paradise scenes. They'll have like some black people, but like a lot of people would just be racially ambiguous. They love that stuff, especially for their actors too sometimes. Next point, and this is a big one. Let me take a sip of water for this. Black Lives Matter movement. So I went to the website earlier today and I typed in Black Lives Matter, and then you'll see this right here. I was not expecting to see this. This is not what I wanted to see, but I saw this article, and to be honest, I don't even want to read this because the question is, are whites more intelligent than black? And I'm sure they wouldn't say anything too problematic in this article because it's in the 70s. You guys can read it and let me know in the comments what it says. But for me, again, it points to the fact that they think they are the center of the universe and the center of God's attention. Because they never ask questions like, are blacks more skilled than whites? Are blacks more intelligent than whites? No, because they see themselves as the default in their religion. And it's crazy to me because like members are booming in Latin America, booming in Africa, booming in Asia. They're growing in countries of color. Anyway, okay, let me get back to the point. I was talking about Black Lives Matter. I want to point out that Jehovah's Witnesses do not get involved in Black Lives Matter because they don't get involved in politics. And in most aspects, they try to remain politically neutral. So like they won't join a protest because you can get disciplined, like not disciplined like physically, but like spiritually disciplined for supporting it. Again, you heard me. If you are black, you are statistically higher at risk of getting shot, in prison, discriminated, and whatnot. And if you want to make a post on Instagram about Black Lives Matter, it's not allowed. However, this is the double standard. Remember when Russia was banning a bunch of religions, and for some reason Jehovah's Witnesses thought it was persecution against them because their religion, again, they think they're the center of the universe. When Russia was banning a bunch of religions, a group, one of them just happened to be Jehovah's Witnesses, but they twisted the narrative saying God is attacking only us. At this point, I remember they had every member around the world write letters to President Putin because he made this law that they didn't agree with, or he made this political decision. So clearly they wrote these letters for what? to influence politics. That's what they did, to influence the law. But they just don't care when it comes to Black people. Because why can you not get in Black Lives Matter when you see perhaps some of your members could be passionate about this? Why not allow your members to get involved in this aspect of politics, but you allow them to get into the Russian politics? Like what? Especially like you're in the US. Like this, I don't understand. Again, this is just anti-Blackness at its best. And it's so crazy, like when I look back how JWs are so deep in the Kool-Aid, they'll make an excuse for everything I just said instead of acknowledging that their religion has a lot of anti-Black stuff in it. Like, again, anytime you mention these things to them, they will always give you an excuse or gaslight you or do something instead of acknowledging that some of the stuff is just made up and it's not right. Next thing, this was a big one for me personally, was the music, because I'm a music lover. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and my TikTok. They have their music is called the Kingdom Melodies. That's their gospel music. So I remember one time I was going door to door and I woke this Black man up. He was mad at me. And what he said to me was, he complained about the music. He goes, I've been to your Kingdom Hall before. He goes, I don't like the European music that they play. He goes, I'm Black. He goes, I need music, like the music of my heart to serve my God. And I had to be a teenager at this point. And it stuck with me up until now because I agreed with him. I was like, yeah, I was like, this music is, I was like, why are we listening to this European classical music? I'm like, if I want to serve God, I want to like, listen to the hype music that the other Black people listen to at the churches because their music is lit. And this is before they created their original songs, because now they have their original songs that they produce on their broadcast, which kind of sound like Christian youth group music, but nothing sounds Black. Nothing of their music sounds Black at all, because anything too close to Blackness is worldly. And this is the reason they will never create any rap song or promote it or even allow their members to make rap songs about God. And if you ask a Jehovah's Witness why they won't make rap music about God, they'll say, we don't want to sound too similar to a genre of music that talks about a lot of worldly stuff, because, rap music isn't clean. And again, this is just anti-Blackness, because for their standard, for a Jehovah's Witness standard, there is no genre of music that is completely clean by their standard, but they love to pick on Black culture and demonize it. They say they want their music to be, respectful and wholesome for God, but that's just another word for saying we want to be the furthest thing from Blackness. If you listen to the music on the website, you can see this for yourself. And for an organization that has so many Black people, they will not cater to their culture because they cater to white comfort first. And it is what it is. And the next thing I want to talk about is the governing body. I might put the picture here again, or there might not be a picture here, so I'm pointing for nothing. I posted them earlier though, but you can see that these men are mostly white. So these men here, before we used to never see them when I was a kid, but then at some point, like they started showing their faces and they started their broadcast, which is basically tele-evangelism. Even though I don't like this word, it's just tele-evangelism. And if you don't know who they are, I feel like I have to give some context or some background for other people who might be watching. Is that so Jehovah's Witnesses believe 144,000 people will go to heaven. And they have about, I think, 8 million members on earth. So these 8 million members will, again, stay here on earth. 144,000 will go to heaven. And the majority of mankind will be killed and wiped off the earth, like, boom. So, like, massacre, basically, in other words. And I know it sounds crazy, but subconsciously, they know it sounds crazy too, because witnesses will never lead with this teaching first. Like when they come to your door and they'll talk like about generic beliefs, but nothing ever this specific. And I think they reason with themselves and they try to say that, oh, worldly people can't understand these teachings that we have because they're spiritual babes and they're not mature, which is utter nonsense, because we all have brains and we can use them. I think the reality is that the beliefs are just so crazy that they know themselves that it would push people away if they led with their strongest stuff first. So instead, when they come to your door, they'll talk about like love, peace, family life, stress, hope for the future, death, stuff like this, because it's the easiest thing to swallow. And it's the best way to get you into the faith, kind of like it's the easiest way to get you in there. Because if they say, hey, everyone's going to die, including you, which is essentially what they are saying, but just indirectly. I'm getting besides the point. I'm sorry. I apologize. So basically, this governing body, this is God's channel. Jehovah, their God, speaks directly to them, and then they take this information, they deliver it to other people. And if you disagree with the governing body, then you're disagreeing with God. And in this sense, they can say, or you can say, they are basically God on earth because their authority cannot be questioned. And even if you want to question them, you cannot. So any new teachings and all decisions for the whole worldwide organization are made by them. And so to give an example, that whatever they do in a village here in Albania, they're doing that same stuff in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. This is how much control is held, and they maintain it very, very well. So one decision they made, one decision that they made was to discourage people from going to college. And they do this in their talks. They've done a lot in written form, and they do a lot of this with examples of people. They'll like play like good example and bad example. And the bad example are people who go to college, and the good example are people who don't go to college but serve God full time, etc., etc. And that's their indirect way of telling you what to do, like this. And so, let me keep going to the next point. Look at this right here. As you can see how much money most of them make in the US, 30,000 or less. Now imagine you're a Black Jehovah's Witness. Boom. Financially, we're not doing as well as white families in the US because, we didn't have that much time to grow wealth or anything like that. So now, boom, you don't go to college, making even less money. So you're kind of destined to be poor as a Black Jehovah's Witness. And a lot of them are very proud of poverty. I don't know why. And if you look at this, this one right here, nearly a third of the members in the US are Black. So now let's say hypothetically, you want to get into the leadership, you want to move up and get to one of the higher positions. It's not something you can really choose, but more so you get selected by someone higher than you or more spiritual than you. They have to approve you before, you can start making moves. But let's say you want to make it to the highest ranks, you want to be a governing body member. So this is how it works. First, you have to be a part of that, 144,000. These are people who are anointed, or they feel that they feel like they're anointed, like they're going to heaven, which no one can prove, by the way. You just have to take someone's word for it. And I want to tell you, you have to be crazy or a narcissist or think you're the center of the world to believe that God is speaking directly to you and he's chosen you, to be one of the 144,000 out of the 8 billion people in the world. And then you think you're so great that you can't be challenged? Because again, you can't challenge the governing body. And these people listen to them. They drink all the Kool-Aid when they speak. Okay, so then this is that's step one. But then you have to go to Bethel. And to become a member of Bethel, you have to serve at the highest capacity. So if you listen or have listened to rap music within a year, you're automatically not allowed to go. So we're systematically, at this point, removing a bunch of Black people. So now you have the Black people who are a part of the 144,000. They have listened to rap music, but they also have to be volunteers and make less money because, at Bethel, that's essentially what you are. So you can consider that a lot of us are already struggling in the US. And if you're a Black Jehovah's Witness, you're going to be struggling even more, perhaps because of lack of education. And when you go to Bethel, you basically sign a vow of poverty. And of course, not again to mention again the financial imbalance in the U.S. and the religious kind of continues this trend. So now let's continue to the systematic racism. What they do is they police your appearance, they police your hair, they police how you dress, they police your clothes, they police your speech to see how properly you speak. And all of this is the reason why the leadership is mostly white, because it's much easier to advance as a white Jehovah's Witness because there are not as many layers or hoops that you have to go through, because JWs systematically are anti-Black. So from the beginning, when they were the International Bible Students up until now, they may have added, I don't know what his name is, but the Black guy, the token Negro. But again, he's just a token and he's living his best lavish life and is treated like a celebrity when he travels. But he's the only Black person living this lifestyle, and he himself, he would not even be allowed to speak on Black issues unless the other members in the room agree with him and agree with what he says or has to say. So it's like when you sit down and think about it, it's actually crazy. So when there's a system that stops you from going to the top or limits your cultural identity so that you have to blend in with every other member, for me, this is a problem. This is a huge, huge problem. Also, I want to point out, this is my first time speaking about, I think, the organization in this capacity online. But I'm just so over the anti-Blackness in the JW community. And I realized that witnesses who grow up Black, we miss out on a lot of cultural aspects. Like we miss out going to Black weddings at churches. We miss out going to, it's not missing out, but like, yeah, also I would call it missing out, but in a different sense, in a negative sense. Like Black funerals or at churches, we miss that as well. And we don't ever get the time or take the time to learn about the spirituality of our ancestors because you're just not allowed to partake in that stuff. And you're not allowed to hang out with worldly people. So again, you're not going to hang out with, other Black people, in your group. But one thing I can say is that luckily we have a lot of, at least I assume, I think most of Black people have like, strong family ties. Otherwise, it would be a lot worse for us. And one thing that I've noticed is that Black Jehovah's Witnesses, who are the most indoctrinated, don't really care about Black issues. Because if they did care, they would have to reanalyze a lot of the organization's behaviors. And the ones who do care about their Blackness and love it tend to believe a little bit less, from my experience. Because how can you love something and be so passionate for something that is clearly against you? So I guess in summary, the systems and the behaviors are anti-Black. But let me speak about the positives as well, because we got to mention some positives. I can say that on an individual level, from my experience, the majority of people that I've met have not been racist. I've traveled, I've been involved in foreign language congregations: English, Dutch, Italian, Chinese, Albanian, and I think that's it. Those are the ones I've actually spent a good decent amount of time in, and I've always been welcome. People have treated me fine, nothing bad. The only bad experience I've had, let's say anti-Blackness with the witnesses, again, this is individual, was we have somebody called a circuit overseer. He travels around, basically makes sure everyone in a certain areas, following standards or procedures. And we have something called Pioneer School, which is like a theocratic 2-week Jehovah's Witness school. And you participate and give answers. And I was there talking, and I used African-American vernacular, let's just say it like that, in front of everyone. And this white man, I forgot what it's, Larry something, he stopped the whole class, called me out, and humiliated me in front of everyone for the way I spoke and corrected my grammar. And it was something so small. It was literally just one word. And he stopped the whole flow because, everyone's raising their hands and talking. He's like, wait one second, I just need to touch on one thing. And I was like, why are you humiliating me? And he wasn't racist because his wife was Black. But again, it's just a lot of anti-Blackness that exists, because you can not be racist but still be anti-Black. You can be Black and still be anti-Black. It's just, otherwise, I've not faced anything bad in my 25 years as a witness on an individual level. But what I made this video, I wanted to make this video to talk about how it is systematically as a whole when you look at it from how they started at the beginning, where they are now, and how people have been able to move up the spiritual ladder, I would say, to get to the top. Because again, you're chosen by somebody else above you who is also anti-Black. All right, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna end this video here. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.